This should be played at high volume, preferably in a residential area.
Baker Mayfield came up short on his hopes of making the championship game last night, but overall he had a pretty incredible season. He threw for more than 4,600 yards and 43 passing TDs, which led him to win the Heisman Trophy last month. In Mel Kiper's latest big board, Mayfield is ranked as the 13th overall best player and the 4th best quarterback. So, Max, if you were a GM, would you want this guy?
Yeah. But, our Giants need a quarterback, Molly. I'd love for them to grab Baker Mayfield and someone else in the first round if you could trade down out of that number 2 slot. Look, Baker Mayfield, the question is, we can all see he has that thing, right? That Tim Tebow and Deshaun Watson have, right? And the question is, where does he fall on that spectrum? Tim Tebow, whose mechanics were considered so bad that I think he was unfairly never given a chance to start again in the NFL after turning around a losing team, bringing them to the playoffs and winning a playoff game against the Pittsburgh Steelers. People are so enamored with, or so focused on technique because the experience of everyone is that technique, if you don't have it, you're not going to be consistently able to get results. But technique is just a means to an end, and Tebow had that extra thing that made guys want to play with him and for him. But maybe he didn't have enough technique even to get those repeated opportunities, even though he had success when he was given the opportunity. And Deshaun Watson, there was the same kind of, hand-wringing about him when he was in college. Well, does he have good enough technique? Is he accurate enough? We all know he has that extra dimension, but the answer was yes. Yes, he is. Now, I'm not saying Baker Mayfield is Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson, I thought, was a better college player than Baker Mayfield, and I think Baker Mayfield is tremendous. But the questions are, is he accurate enough? Yes, I believe he is. Is his arm strong enough? Yes, I believe it is. And he certainly has that it factor, the X factor, that seems to make it fun for guys to play with him. I don't see this as drafting a quarterback where after a couple of years he's still learning. I think that Baker Mayfield, as soon as he gets that ball, as soon as they start him or he comes into a game, you're going to feel electrified and you're going to see whether or not they actually win in the end, because he's going to go to a bad team. You're going to see a noticeable difference. You're going to see a team overachieving. I would absolutely take him in the first round.
I would take him in the first round, too. I'm just not sure I would take him as high as you would take him. Having said all of that, let me qualify my comments by making this point. This kid Bellamy out of Georgia that was screaming at him to humble himself, the brother dropped 48 points in a national semifinal. I mean, really humble yourself? If you're talking about humbling yourself, I mean, it's real easy to say that after you win the game, but Baker Mayfield and that offense dropped 48 points on y'all. That ain't the time to be telling Baker Mayfield to humble himself because, truth be told, Oklahoma's offense did not lose this game. The man has 83 touchdowns and 14 interceptions in the last 2 years. 40 last year, 43 this year, 8 interceptions last year, 6 this year, and has completed 70% of his passes both years. He is unquestionably a first-round pick. He was the Heisman Trophy winner. He deserves props. Here's where my trepidation about him comes into play. When you're that size, just 6 feet, they list him at 6'1", I don't believe. He's about 6 feet tall, whatever. Okay? And you're undersized and you have to live over professional offensive lines. He definitely has the motor to scramble out of the pocket and make plays with his feet. But I need to see Russell Wilson when I look at a guy his size. I don't see that yet. I'm not saying that he can't be that way. But when I looked at Russell Wilson coming out of college, you ever see them tree trunks on Russell Wilson? You see how massive those legs are? I mean, this dude, listen.
What about Drew Brees?
Well, again.
Not the tallest dude in the world?
Yeah, no. But Drew Brees, he's a brilliant passer. I don't see that in Baker Mayfield. I see a Russell Wilson type. The difference is I see an undersized in terms of girth. I see an undersized version of Russell Wilson, point A. Point B, your head. You got to be a leader. You can't be the kind of guy that's a distraction in any way. I'm not holding against him the things that he's done because he's a college kid. That happens. What I'm saying is that
you can't be Johnny
man's world, and there are going to be professionals who have to pay their mortgages. This is their livelihood. They put everything on the line, and they will use any mechanism necessary to come at you. The level of discipline that is required, particularly for an undersized dude that's going to have to come up with a myriad of ways to make plays. You're exposing yourself.
You just made another
thing.
Right.
I'm worried about that with him.
I put him on the Tebow Watson spectrum and said he's close and you know, anywhere in that spectrum.
Really yelling, humble yourself at Mayfield. The quarterback never acknowledged Bellamy as he made his way around congratulating Georgia players. Here's Bellamy on why he had that message for Mayfield.
Well, all I'm saying is humble yourself. Yeah. I mean, all the flamboyancy, that's like I carry myself the same way. But humble yourself, man.
All right, one area where the Dogs held Baker Mayfield in check was the deep ball. Baker Mayfield completed 3 of 10 passes thrown at least 15 yards downfield, tied for his fewest completions with that many attempts in a game this season. He also had an interception on such throws yesterday. Mayfield got emotional when talking about the end of his Sooner career.
Can't believe it's over. It's been a wild ride.
And obviously you could tell from his voice with the sickness that he'd been dealing with. But now we're left with this quandary in Baker Mayfield, because I don't care what anyone says. He is going to be, for lack of a better term, the swing state when it comes to the NFL draft in April. He is going to be the guy that people will either say, oh, I love that competitive spirit. I love the way he fires up his teammates. I love all that stuff. Or he's going to be the guy that people are like, I don't know, he's slightly undersized. He's not as fast as Russell Wilson. Can he be as accurate as Drew Brees for a guy with a smaller stature? I'm not sure about that. He's going to be the polarizing figure in the first round of that draft. Because Adam Schefter was on our show earlier, a few weeks ago, and he said, look, he's going to go in the first round. The question becomes where he goes in the first round, and where do you judge all the positives with all the potential drawbacks in the NFL?
I think he's going to end up being probably the 4th quarterback taken in the first round if all those guys come out. And honestly, it'll work out better for him that way. We see the way we've heard the priority of the guys like Josh Rosen who come out and said, or said behind closed doors, I'd rather go lower to the right team than earlier to the wrong team. Baker may not have a choice, and that may be the best thing for him, especially in a time period where, I mean, you guys see it every weekend where more and more offensive coordinators are saying, we want to get these picks on the field earlier. They come from these spread attacks. Let's meld some of these principles into what we do and help them.
So he's a guy that you know, with all the stuff that he did, you know, from the planting the flag to the Kansas game, the grabbing.
But by the way, the planting the flag, I have no problem with whatsoever.
I'm going through all the stuff that I don't have a problem with a lot of it.
Yeah.
In all honesty, I really don't. I mean, the Kansas thing where they weren't shaking hands. Now, you don't want to go up and down the sideline grabbing yourself and doing that whole thing. I get it, but I'm not looking at that and going, oh my God, I'm not drafting to get far. His teammates love him. He's a magnet of a leader. No doubt about that. I want to like him so much to say, I want him to do so well at the next level, but I don't know if he will. I don't know if he will. I don't know if he will, because what's going to happen is, forget stats, gang. The first thing you got to do is throw out stats and look at how they play. Look at how they play in the pocket. Look at how quickly do they run out of the pocket. In pressure, do they trust their legs to get out of danger before going through their progressions? Look at that. And when you look at the Big 12, the size of the windows he's throwing into. When you look at a game last night, when they closed those windows in the second half, how he struggled. That's what evaluators are going to do. They're going to look at the throws he has to make, the tight throws that he has to make. Or when his guys are open, where is he putting the ball? That's what they're going to look at a little more. And I think he struggles there. I think he struggles in the closing of the windows, when it gets a little tighter, when it's going to be more the timing routes, when you're throwing a guy open, not waiting for him to clear somebody.
I just think that's going to be less of it than stature, because look at the guys that we're talking about up top. I mean, Darnold, Rosen, and Allen both spent most of this season tossing a fair amount of interceptions, finding ways to do that. It's not like they lit the world on fire with accuracy, but they've got bigger arms and they've got more of the prototypes. So I think that's what's going to land Baker further back in all those. I mean, those guys, one of those players is going to end up losing Hugh Jackson his job this season.
Listen, I agree with that. Watching those guys play, I'm not sold on a lot of them. I can do a lot more to look at. So I'm with you. So it's the fact that he struggles throwing like those guys did as well, but then you're right. You magnify that by now his size. How quickly is he trying? Because you know with those other guys, they're escaping to kind of get something going downfield, but they're going to hang in the pocket a little more. Does Baker book out of the pocket too soon? You know, these are all the things you kind of look at the next level. That's why I said throw off the stats and look at what they're doing in the situations that are comparable on an NFL field.
And that's the thing that's hard for a lot of people to sort of understand, because the process is not about what they accomplished in college. It's how does that skill set translate to a different game in the NFL. And two of the things that people always talk about when you're looking at quarterbacks, number one, you're going to throw out of a spread or a shotgun a lot more in college than you will in the NFL. Now, you're seeing more of that in the NFL, but not the preponderance of times you will do it in the college game. And then there's the issue of not waiting for someone to be open, but throwing someone open, or throwing someone who's covered and putting it in a spot where only your receiver can get it. Those are the two things that really dictate, I think, from most player scouts' perspectives, where a quarterback goes at the next level. And I'll be the first to admit, they get it wrong a ton. They do. They were
Deshaun Watson.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
I mean, Dabo Sweeney said it all along. He's Michael Jordan. And you know what? He put up more points in a game in his rookie year than Michael Jordan ever did in the NBA this past rookie season. So that's the issue. It's an inexact science. But just know that's what scouts are looking for.
Yeah.
That's what they're looking for. And we hear this from Mel Kiper on his big board. He has him currently as the 4th quarterback, 13th overall prospect. And he's saying, I'm just hearing too much from scouts who love him and think he's going to be a first-round pick. He's one of the most difficult evaluations in this class. I love him on the field, but his size is going to be a question until he gets in front of scouts at the Senior Bowl. He hasn't said yet whether or not he's attending. He's listed as 6'1", but I think he's closer to 6 foot even. Then there's McShay. He has him as the 4th quarterback and 27th overall pick. He said he was my 9th ranked quarterback entering the season. He's done a lot to improve his stock. The issue for him is that he doesn't have the ideal measurables. And people need to understand, whether it's right or wrong, measurables are what get you into the first round. And sometimes that's why you miss.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's why you see a lot of great players in the 2nd or 3rd round, because they throw measurables out because they're not afraid to be wrong on
And I think he's going to the Senior Bowl, is he not?
Yes, he is.
Said he's going to go to the Senior Bowl.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, to Trey's point, they're using the measurables to try and justify getting you for cheap.
Right.
It may not be they think you're a bad player. They're just looking for how to get you out of the bargain bin.
Why should we buy you for what you may be worth and we can get you for less?
Marco Thomas was a great safety coming out of Syracuse my rookie year in Pittsburgh, and I remember he was like a 2nd or 3rd round pick for them, and Mike Tomlin looked at him and said, we got you in that round because you're a sawed-off linebacker, because you're shorter than the expectations need you to be for this. And so that could be what happens for Baker, but it's interesting with all these guys, because nowadays this puts more onus on coaching in the NFL than maybe ever before. And we've seen the Sean McVays of the world, the teams that have made it work. They overuse play-action pass. They put these guys in position. You need great coaching to try and mask up what some of these offenses aren't going to create for you.
And again, this will be the process for the next 3.5 months.
Yes, it will.
Baker Mayfield. But he will be that guy. He'll be the swing vote that has everybody's eyes on the draft. And that's why it's going to be a lot of fun with 4